Good morning. I'm Amy Dalrymple. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of this congregation and chair of the worship associates here at Unitarian Universalist Area Church at First Parish in Sherburne. Let's begin our sacred worship service by taking a deep breath in and letting it out. I share these welcoming words from Andrew Pakula. Come into this circle of community. Come into this sacred space. Be not tentative. Bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. Bring also your sorrow, your pain. Bring your brokenness and your disappointments. Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides within each of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. May we know the joy of being together.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Reverend Nathan. I'm privileged to be one of your ministers. Hey, it's March, you guys. It's March. I know it's winter, but still, it feels like it, but it's March. Sunlight. I'm more excited than you are, but that's okay. We're going to wave good morning to those folks who are watching us from afar. Good morning, friends who are watching us from afar. And for those who don't know, we also now have the ability to podcast all the sermons, so you can subscribe to, like on Spotify or any other of your podcasting platforms, and the sermon will come right to you, in case you want to listen to it like 12 times after worship, right to you on Monday morning. It's amazing. We have first of all, we have a guest musician, Abby Alvaretto. Thank you so much for being here with us. And we also have our own Kathleen Castellanos back, who's going to play the piano, of course, but also a little bit of the organ. A few of the gentle reminders. We all know if you'd like to say a prayer card, have Ian say a prayer card for us during worship, just right over there where Alan is filling it out now. You can sign up for bells and chalice and to ring the bell and to bring flowers. Beautiful, look, yellow flowers. They like little bulbs of sunshine because you know why? It's March, you guys. There's a place in the back for young people who are feeling squirmy because the pews aren't all that comfortable. We are a community that welcomes all ages, all stages, all noises. So just be where you are and feel at home in our space together. So today, after the Wonder Box, I get to use the Wonder Box today. Our young people kindergarten through sixth grade, will go to their classrooms, and we'll have a great time. And I'm going to do some classes with Amy and a few other people. It's going to be terrific. We would love to welcome you if you're new today. There's a blue card in your pews. You can hold those up, fill those out, and you can be welcomed by myself and Reverend Joe and Ian, also Anastasia Krantz, who's our membership coordinator and our senior youth group person. And of course, friends, join us after worship for a coffee hour and refreshments. A few of the things coming up this week. One is today at 12, I'm leading Roots class for those who want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, and halfway through, I'm going to share that class with the coming of age folks, talk about history. They're so excited to hear me wobble on about history, I've heard. And then Lunch and Learn, which is our chance to feed you and learn a few things, is happening next Sunday, the 9th. Friends, next Sunday, it's Spring Forward, okay? This is your public service announcement. Saturday night, and if you have an old-fashioned clock, not a smartphone, spring it forward, and that means the church will start an hour earlier than you're expecting. Okay? Okay? Okay. Senior youth group also meets next Sunday, finally at last. So Anastasia's going to lead that as well. And we have one more announcement from our own Kevin Paul, our finance guru. Kevin.
Thank you so much, Nathan. So show of hands, who's been to the auction, the church auction before? Okay, good number of hands, but a lot of hands weren't up, so this is your opportunity. Saturday, April 5th, we have a QR code that you can scan. You can buy tickets, you can volunteer, you can donate items, you can donate cash. You can see some of the amazing things that have already been donated here on the list. And we're going to start the excitement. Who's excited? It's hard to tell. There we go. All right. We're going to start the excitement. One of our youngest committee members, Marina, is in the upper deck, and paper airplanes are going to be flying in a minute. And there's a secret airplane that has a free ticket. So let's launch the airplanes. All right. Who wants to tell us what they got? Liam, what does yours say? Better luck next time. Okay. Oh, there we go. We've got the golden ticket. Thank you very much, UUAC FAA from the upper deck. Tune in for more fun and excitement, and please join us for the auction. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Invite us to say good morning to our neighbors and friends.
Good morning. It's good to see you all. My name is Reverend Jo. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm your Minister for Lifespan Learning, and I invite you to join me in our opening words, which are adapted from Reverend Elizabeth Tarbox. Perhaps ours is a story of faith and hope and love. Perhaps it is our need for one another that binds us together. It brings us laughing and limping into relationships and keeps us at it when we otherwise might despair at the fix we are in. Perhaps it is the holy we need, the eternal beyond our comprehension. And one place we can find it is here, working and worshiping in community. Perhaps there is a transcendent value worthy of our loyalty, upon which we may set our hearts, and its divine form is love. In that spirit, I'm excited to introduce our opening hymn, which some of you may have learned with Reverend Heather a while ago. It's called Call Down a Blessing. This is one that is not in our hymnals. It's a beautiful one that you'll catch on to really quickly. The chorus repeats, the verses repeat. If you want to join in with some harmonies on it, that's also lovely. I'll sing the chorus through once, and then we'll do it together. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Beautiful. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Here's the verse. Beauty above us, beauty around us, beauty within us, and beauty between us. Call down a blessing, call call down a blessing, call down love around us, love before us, love within us, and love between us. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Together. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Some things go unresolved, and that's okay. Speaking of which, I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we light our chalice.
Our chalice lighter today is coming up to the front, Elizabeth Bilodeau. Beautifully done, Elizabeth. Thank you. The chalice and the flame is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. That flame of joy, that flame of hope, that flame of love that we maintain within. Please join me now in saying our covenant, which is in your orders of worship and up on the screens. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another.
Thank you. Please be seated. I'd love to invite our young people up for our Wonderbox time with myself. And while they do, Kathleen, how do you like the organ? All right, good job. For those who are new, we just got this organ like last week. We had a whole organ extravaganza here last Sunday. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Good. How are you? You want to come on up? Okay. I like you, Teddy. Hi. So you guys can take a seat. Yeah? Awesome. So our theme for the month of March, our worship theme is play. When I say the word play, what's something you think of? When I say the word play, what's something you think of? Yes? You think of a play. That's a good idea. Yeah? Do you like Les Mis? What do you like? What kind of play do you like? Yeah, they act. Okay. When I say the word, what else do you think of? Playground, fun, kids, and sunshine. What else do you think of? Legos. All right. So I want to tell you a little bit about when I was a kid. Can I do that? When I was a kid, I loved anything with wheels. Yeah, like I would love toy motorcycles, especially. That was my main thing. Anything that my parents would give me to play with motorcycles, I absolutely loved. And one of my most favorite toys when I was a kid, remember, I grew up in the 70s. I know I look really young, but I grew up in the 70s, was Evel Knievel. So you guys don't know who this was, but there was a toy. It was a motorcycle, okay? And you'd wind it up on this red thing. You go, "Rrr, rrr." You can do the voice with me if you want. "Rrr, rrr, rrr." And then it would take off and it would jump off the stairs of my second floor, like down to the landing and crash into the clock that my grandfather made, and my parents would yell at me. Okay. All right, so that's what I loved to do as a kid. And then I grew up and I became an adult. And you can think, kids, you can ask your parents, do you still play? Because sometimes adults, we lose the play vibe, don't we? We really do. So when I was an adult, I was like about 34. Hi. And I had little kids, really little, like 4 and 1. Didn't sleep. I didn't sleep. Ian, I didn't sleep. Ian just had a new baby. And it was Christmas time, and my dad knew that I loved toys, and he mailed something to me for Christmas. Max, do you want to come open the Wonder Box for us? Yeah, the Wonder Box, you got to turn around now. Take out the other part, Max. This is an exact replica of the toy that I had when I was like 7 years old. And my dad and I had a complicated relationship. Sometimes that's what happens in families. But my dad was the best gift giver in the world. He died about 6 years ago now. And I keep this in my closet at home. And I bring it out when I need to be reminded when the world is a little heavy. You guys, does the world feel a little heavy these days? So yesterday, I dug into the back of my closet and I got out my Evel Knievel toy. Do you want to see how it works? Yes. You sure? Yes. Okay. So if I go that way towards Rosie, depending on what's going to happen, it might take out a couple of you, but that's... For those in the back who can't see, you'll just get the sound effect, okay? Rosie's going to jump off the steps. We wanted to jump off the step, and it's going to work. So scoot over a little bit. One more time. The sound is impressive, isn't it? I love my job. Okay, it's better in the story than it is in real life, as with so much. Thank you so much, Maria. The best part about Evel Knievel is he takes his helmet off. When he's done from the day, he just wants to relax a little bit, takes his helmet off, just relaxes, and probably plays with this, too. What I want to tell you guys is that all of us who are adults behind you, we need your help to help us play. Yes? So today, I have a challenge for you. Each of you have a challenge, okay? I want you to help your adults in your life play something today. And so you go to your adults in your life and you say, would you play this with me? And I guarantee you, they will say yes. Right? That's right. because we need you guys to help us play. Play tag too. All right, with that, so I get to be with our kids today. I get to play myself.
Can I
with
say
Reverend
a
Joe
little
and
bit?
Ian.
Can I say a bit about that?
Yes.
So our classes today, if you got my email, are extra special. Kindergarten and first grade, thank you, Nathan, by the way, for that. Kindergarten and first graders are going to go to your OWL class with Miranda and Beth. Second graders are going to go to Free to Believe with Amy and Reverend Nathan, talking about how we figure out what we believe and our paths together. And then, I'm so excited about this, we're combining grades 4, 5, and 6 because our 4th and 5th graders are asking really good, mature questions, and our 6th graders are great leaders. And we have this really great program called How We Do UU that our 6th graders have been doing. So I hope you all enjoy it. Grades 4, 5, and 6 are going to go to the FOS room. That's a room with the big tables in it. So we hope you'll have fun. Let us know how it goes. That's going to be with Stuart and Liz. And we're going to sing them out. Throughout our season of stewardship, where we talk about how we care for the church and how it cares for us, we love having congregants come up here and share their stories of what UUAC means to them. And I'm really delighted that Emily and Sean Bilodeau have agreed to come up and share a little bit about what UUAC means to them. Hang on.
Wait, no, wait. Oh my God.
Wow. I'm Emily Bilodeau. This is my husband, Sean. We first started attending UUAC about 15 years ago when we moved to Medway. I grew up in the UU church, and my first home church was actually in Wayland. And Sean was raised Catholic and made the choice to attend with me as an adult. And just as the churches I attended as a child in Massachusetts and Vermont were my safe place during tumultuous times, providing reliable warmth and food, UUAC quickly became my safe place as an adult. This community was a haven for me during painful and challenging times as we went through years of infertility treatments and legal fights with the insurance company, quickly followed by Sean's last and most terrifying accident. And it was okay for me not to be okay when we were here. It was okay for me to sit in the pews and cry, and it was okay for me to leave the sanctuary and cry in the bathroom if that's what I needed to do. Later, UUAC became a community where our children could be, I love Heather's phrase for this, feral church children. And there are many caring adults here who are invested in the well-being of our children and whom we trust to be mentors, leaders, and role models as they grow from good small humans into good adult humans. We know that if they escape from our sight for a few minutes, which happens frequently, they will still be safe and loved in this building and among this community, and that as a community, we value teaching our children to grow up to create space and sanctuary for those around them. Here also, Sean and I can be humans ourselves with needs and wants and fears and not just mom and dad. As passionate educators and musicians, this sanctuary is another place for us to foster those parts of ourselves in meaningful ways outside of our school communities, whether that's through teaching OWL, serving as a coming-of-age mentor, or playing and singing for services.
Is this as low as this thing goes?
No, it goes even lower. Press the down arrow.
Oh my God. Okay, we're good. Sorry. UUAC is a place that we can turn to feel safe and seen when the world becomes scary, overwhelming, or simply just sad. Sometimes this is on Sundays in our physical space, but it can also be through reaching out to our ministers, holding space for each other, as we did during COVID. It can feel strange to walk into the sanctuary again. It felt strange to us to walk into the sanctuary again in the winter of 2020 when we signed up for visiting slots before Christmas, but it was also really joyful. Though the building was empty, except for us, it was still warm and familiar, welcoming and free of judgment. Sanctuary is a place of safety and respite. Sanctuaries can be physical places, mental spaces, the communities that you are a part of, the activities that you do in your everyday life. UAC is special in that it is a physical space and a community that invokes feelings of warmth, welcome, and comfort and safety. It is a place of unconditional love and acceptance where like-minded people can find strength in each other.
Thank you, Emily and Sean. Now is a time for prayer and silence. This is a time for coming to the center of ourselves. Put your feet on the ground. Breathe deep in this space. And feel the weight of each other in the room. We'll now have our call to prayer. Our prayer hymn for March is new. It is the prayer hymn, In These Hard Times. Members of the choir will sing it once, and then we invite you to join in as you can.
The backstory of this is the lyrics were inspired by a quote from Bertolt Brecht. In the hard times, where there'll also be singing, yes, there will also be singing about the hard times.
In these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times, in these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times.
We carry so many prayers for loved ones, for each other this morning. A prayer from Alan Cantor for my friend Judy, whose mother died peacefully on Thursday. From Sierra, a prayer for Ben, who came through surgery with flying colors. A prayer from Gail, prayers for the Tikva who is going into hospice. Prayers for Tikva who is going into hospice. And a prayer from Reverend Nathan for our beloved Gail Donaldson, who died this last Monday. Reverend Nathan was there to offer prayers and song. If there are any of those loved ones who remain on your hearts, I invite you now to say them out loud or to say them just to yourself. Muriel Willie. We will now light a candle for all those names spoken and unspoken. There are also so many prayers for the world, a prayer for Ukraine as we reach the 3-year mark since Russia invaded. May peace and justice prevail there soon. A prayer for the world, for all children worrying about deportation. For all trans and genderqueer people who have lost access to healthcare rights and are worried about losing more. We will now light a candle for our prayers for the world. And there is joy also in this world. We have prayers for joy and thanksgiving. It is March and the weather is warmer. And that is a prayer from me. Another prayer from me is that my new son, Ash, just turned 1 month old yesterday. There is yet new life in this world. If you have a prayer of thanksgiving that you would like to speak out loud or speak in your heart, I invite you to do so now. We light a prayer of thanksgiving. Oh, and a prayer, of course, for Varla, for our wonderful flowers today in honor of Gloria and Frederick Galanou. Please join me now in a time of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, one with many names and no names. This is a time when we need your guidance most of all. For though the weather seems warmer, the world seems increasingly cold. Let our lights shine through it. Let our lights banish the cold and darkness. Let us be the people that we need to see in the world. There is hope yet, and there is joy, and there is play. And though it can be hard to see, help us see it. Help us remake a better world. It's there.
Today's reading is titled Don't Hesitate by Mary Oliver. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happened better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb.
Speaking of not being satisfied with crumbs, now is the time for Beyond Our Walls, when we collect an offering and we give 100% of it away to an organization that lives out our values of love and justice and peace. This week, we are collecting an offering for the Massachusetts Legal Assistance Corporation, and we're grateful to our guest musician, Gabby. Thank you, Gabby, for bringing this organization to our attention. The Massachusetts Legal Assistance Corporation, or MLAC, is the largest funding source for civic legal aid organizations in Massachusetts. The Commonwealth established MLAC in 1983 to ensure that people with low incomes facing critical, non-criminal legal issues have access to legal information, advice, and representation. They fund grants to a huge range of civil rights legal organizations, including around issues of immigration and refugee protection, disability rights, intimate partner violence protection, Medicare advocacy, and victims of violent crimes. You can make an offering by scanning the QR code on the screen or in your pews, or by giving cash or checks to the baskets coming around. Thank you for your generosity.
Every time. Sorry, I've got secret stuff down here. Sully's looking at all the stuff I've just knocked over, going, do I pick that up? Grateful to our animals, too, that remind us to play and find joy even when we most don't think we want to. There are a lot of questions going around right now about the state of the world. I know I have them. I imagine you do too. I think the ones that are most popular are variations on what, why, and really, with the attached expletives of your choice. I know one question that I've been hearing, though, a lot among both congregants and friends and people on the internet just has a different tone to it. I hear it after folks describe a sweet afternoon they spent out with family, talking about the joy of sinking into a good book with a cup of tea nearby, or talking about a vacation. I hear some sense of guilt and shame and worry, with questions like, it feels, I don't know, wrong somehow to go and do this fun, fluffy, frivolous thing when so much is crumbling and on fire and there is so much work to do. You're a minister, you tell me, is this okay? Well, first, I'm sorry to say that the authority that is granted to you with a Master of Divinity degree is greatly misleading. I cannot make those ethical decisions about things like that for you, as much as it might be helpful. But to answer in kind, with an example, in about the 4 months or so since the election, I have watched at least 11 full seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race without ceasing. So yes, I think having fun when it feels like the world is crumbling around you is not just okay, but sometimes it is necessary. Some of this drag race marathon in my life was definitely just decompressing, relaxing in front of the TV, and having an escape from the news and unrelenting waves that I feel of fear and anger. And that is important. Our movements and our bodies need us to not burn out, both physically and mentally. Now, if you've listened to my sermons for a while, you may have learned that I love a list. So here is reason number 1, why joy and play are necessary in these times. Joy leads to resilience. We need these breaks from constant vigilance, action, anxiety, and/or anger, whatever your own special blend is right now. And not just rest, although we absolutely need rest. We also need moments of release and celebration to mark those smaller victories and to restore our body and mind. There was this research study in the wake of 9/11 that found that just small bursts of positive emotion can help buffer us against stress and grief and help promote resilience. Even that little moment of joy can help us reset the body's physical response to stress so that we can continue to fight from a place of well-being and strength. Yes, taking a break to cheer for my favorite drag queen gave me a reprieve that allowed me to go back to the work of the moment. But in particular, I chose that show and its various spin-offs because I wanted to escape into a world that centered queer joy, that gave drag queens a stage to share their creativity, to be celebrated for taking risks that move them toward their boldest selves, while at the bare minimum, drag queen story hours are still being vilified, and at worst, our trans family is under attack in terrifying ways. I absolutely wanted to watch these queens play and dance around in their most beautiful makeup and their biggest wigs and highest heels and most bedazzled bodysuits and lip sync their hearts out. Amen? Amen. Thank you. You might have heard the phrase, joy is an act of resistance. I learned that this came out of a poem from the author Toy Derricotte, which offered other Black women a revolutionary perspective on the work of racial justice. Joy is an act of resistance. Author and public speaker Austin Channing Brown wrote about the impact of this statement, saying, "Finally, we were given permission not to just be mules for the work of racial justice, carrying a kicking and screaming country into a better future." In a society that doesn't value your happiness or well-being, proclaiming that you are worthy of joy is, in itself, a radical act. One anonymous blogger who is a queer parent of a transgender child wrote about how they are finding clarity and encouragement in queer joy to counteract the grief of this moment. And they wrote, "For all kinds of marginalized communities, joy is an act of defiance. Systems of oppression thrive on making us feel powerless and hopeless. They want us to live in fear, to shrink ourselves, to hide. But when we dance at Pride, laugh with our chosen families, and celebrate our identities unapologetically, we reject the narrative that we are broken or less than." The blogger concludes, "Joy reminds us that we are whole, beautiful, and deserving of every good thing." Joy leads to resilience. Here's reason number 2 why joy is such a powerful act of resistance. Joy and play allow us to reclaim our humanity. I'm going to lower this a little more because I can. That's better. Thanks, Bill. I just finished listening to the audiobook edition of Judith Heumann's memoir called Being Human, the Unrepentant Memoir of a Disability Rights Activist. If you haven't read it, it's been out for a couple of years. Go pick it up. Judy Heumann was among those instrumental in the disability rights movement that got the 504 Act and the Americans with Disability Act passed, without which my life would have gone very, very differently. Heumann and more than 100 other disabled activists held a sit-in in a California legislative building, along with sit-ins around the country, to pressure a politician to sign the 504 bill. If you're not familiar with that term, Section 504 is a federal law that prohibits any entity that receives federal funds, such as grants or student loans, from discriminating against people with disabilities. I listened to this section of her memoir as I was driving to work a few days ago. Right before I'd left to get in the car that day, I'd read the news about how our government is now trying to dismantle the protections ensured under 504. So now I'm driving and I'm crying and feeling grateful for the struggle and hardships that she and so many others went through so that future generations, including mine, might have more protections and access that we all deserve. In the narrative, Heumann is describing the discomfort and hardships that the protesters were faced during the sit-in. Sleeping in their wheelchairs or on hard office floors or in closets, with inconsistent access to medication or medical supplies or even food. And yet, she writes, despite the discomfort, people began to have fun. They raced their wheelchairs in the halls, organized games, played guitar, and I sang songs. There was almost no privacy. Everyone was getting dressed and taking care of whatever they needed to do in the middle of everything, and they were bonding. They sat in small circles for hours, talking and talking. Friendships formed. A young disabled woman fell in love with an attendant and talked about how this made her feel beautiful for the first time in her life. Human goes on to say, "It was a world where we didn't have to feel inferior for being slow or different. In that building, we could easily visit each other and spend time together without having to rely on a family member or a friend or unreliable public transportation. The inaccessibility of the outside world, which so often left us isolated, felt very, very far away. Joy and play allow us to reclaim our humanity." Here's number 3. To use an evocative phrase from Ingrid Fettel-Lee, joy is a propulsive force. Isn't that great? A propulsive force. So often, autocratic regimes try to ban forms of joy, frequently banning types of music that they deem objectionable. I learned a lot of this from Lee's writing on the aesthetics of joy, which I share here. Lee wrote, "In China, under Mao, listening to the music of Beethoven was a crime. Under many authoritarian regimes, folk or traditional music is typically condemned, such as in Nazi Germany, which targeted Jewish music. But contemporary hits are just as suspect. The Soviet Union, for example, censored songs by artists as varied as AC/DC, Tina Turner, and Julio Iglesias. In communist Albania, the regime of Enver Hoxha, and somebody correct me if I pronounced that wrong, famously banned the saxophone. In Trinidad, the British banned drumming. Dancing was similarly reviled," Lee continues, "and all types of celebration found themselves in the crosshairs of European colonists setting out to spread Christianity and civilization around the world. Local authorities often forbade or disrupted indigenous rights, or at minimum, made relinquishing them a condition of conversion." Barbara Ehrenreich notes that in South Africa, among the Namakwas, it was said that someone who converted to Christianity, quote, "had given up dancing." Dictators seem to know that joy propels us forward, like that little evil Knievel. That's going to be such a great image. Gathering and channeling our energy, which threatens to upend the control of a population. Music, dance, art, all of it creates emotional responses that spur us onward. Have any of you felt some sort of emotional response to music, art, or dance that encouraged you, emboldened you? Yeah. Yeah, I bet she has. On the small micro scale, one of the first things that I learned as a song leader at protests is that the energy that you bring to a chant or that the crowd has shapes the energy of the whole march. On a much larger scale, I learned that there was what was known as the singing revolution, which I now want to go learn a lot about. This was a 4-year series of protests involving mass singing demonstrations that swept across Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia between 1987 and 1991, eventually leading to their independence. All of this just really reinforces what, for me, is a guideline in life that my hero Pete Seeger said: "The right song at the right moment can change history." Reason number 4, why joy is a tool for resistance movements. Joy disrupts expectations. It can take something that might be threatening to people, like difference or change, and make it less scary. I once heard this story that Bishop Desmond Tutu was being threatened by the South African government to stop speaking out against apartheid, and on one Easter morning, soldiers were sent to his church. They lined the walls of the sanctuary holding loaded rifles. His congregation was frightened that Tutu would speak out against apartheid and that the soldiers would start shooting. They were also frightened that he wouldn't speak out, because then the regime would effectively have won. So what happened? Tutu began bouncing on his heels and laughing uproariously like a child, and the laughter was contagious, like laughter is. Soon everyone was laughing, even some of the soldiers. And in the midst of all that laughter, Tutu cried out to the soldiers, "Little brothers, you know that God is a God of justice, the God of the Exodus. You know that we are going to win. We don't want you to miss one moment of the celebration. Join us now. The party wouldn't be complete without you." He went on then to preach about apartheid, and no shots were fired. Joy and play disrupt expectations, propel us forward, allow us to reclaim our humanity and promote our resilience. And to close us out, I want to give us one more piece of whimsy, a story that brings us all together. This is based on a true story. In May of 2007, white supremacists were going to march down the streets of Knoxville, Tennessee. The retelling of this story by David Lamont depicts this most delightful example of de-escalation that I have ever heard of. Now, in telling this story, I want to give the caveat, I will have to say that the words that those white supremacist marchers said, and use the words white power a few times, even though we know the Unitarian Universalist faith is entirely contrary to that belief. Yes? Yes. So you can help me not feel awful about that by booing briefly when I say those objectionable phrases, okay? And I believe Ian and Anastasia will be helping me as we go along as well. You don't have to do anything yet, but just, yeah. Here goes the story. The day was bright and sunny, as most May days tend to be, in the hills of Appalachia down in Knoxville, Tennessee. A dozen men put on their suits and quickly took their places in white robes and those tall and pointed hoods that hid their faces. Their feet fell down in rhythm as they started their parade. They raised their fists in the air, they bellowed and they brayed. They loved to stir the people up. They loved when they were taunted. They didn't mind the anger. It's exactly what they wanted. As they came around the corner, sure enough, the people roared. But they couldn't quite believe their ears. It seemed to be support. Had Knoxville finally seen the light? Were people coming round? The men thought for a moment that they'd found their kind of town. But then they turned their eyes to where the cheering had its source. As one, their shoulders crumpled when they saw the mighty force. The crowd had painted faces, and some had tacky clothes. Their hair and hats outrageous. Each had a bright red nose. Here we go. The clowns had come in numbers to enjoy the grand parade. They laughed and danced that other clowns had come to town that day. And then the marchers shouted, and the clowns all strained to hear, each one tuned in intently with a hand cupped to an ear. "White power!" screamed the marchers, and they raised their fisted hands. The clowns leaned in and listened like they couldn't understand. Then one held up his finger and helped all the others see the point of all this yelling, and they joined right in with glee. "White flower!" the clowns shouted, and they reached inside their clothes. They pulled out bags and tore them, and huge clouds of powder rose. They poured it on each other, and they threw it in the air. It got all over baggy clothes and multicolored hair. Now, all but just a few of them were joining in the jokes. You could almost see the marchers turning red beneath white cloaks. They wanted to look scary. They wanted to look tough. One rushed right at the clowns in rage and was hauled away in cuffs. But the others chanted louder, marching on around the bend. The clowns all marched on too, of course, supporting their new friends. "White power!" came the marchers' cry. They were not amused. The clowns grew still and thoughtful. Well, perhaps they'd been confused? They huddled and consulted, this bright and silly crowd. They listened quite intently. Then one said, "I've got it now." "White flowers!" screamed the happy clown, and all the rest joined in. The air was filled with flowers, and they laughed and danced again. Everyone loves flowers, and white's a pretty sort. I can't think of a better cause for people to support. Green flower stems went flying like small arrows from bad archers. White petals covered everything, including the mad marchers. And then a very tall clown called the others to attention. He choked down all his chuckles and said, "Friends, I have to mention that what with all of this mirth and fun, it's sort of hard to hear, but now I know the cause that these paraders hold so dear. Tight showers," the clown blurted, and he hit his head in wonder. He held up, oh, can't reach it, a camp shower. Thank you. And all the others got under, or at least they tried to get beneath. They strained but couldn't quite. Woo! The pulpit's on wheels, now we know. There wasn't room for all of them. They pushed, but it was tight. You're a good sport. Here you go. Would you like a tissue? Here, it's clean. "White power!" came the mad refrain, quite carefully pronounced. The clowns consulted once again. Then a woman clown announced, "I've got it. I'm embarrassed that it took so long to see. But what these marchers march for is a cause quite dear to me. Wife power," she exclaimed, and all the other clowns joined in. They shook their heads and laughed at how erroneous they'd been. The woman clowns were hoisted up on shoulders of the others. If we've got any wives and mothers here, please stand so that we can cheer for you. Some pulled on wedding dresses. No, but really, if we have anybody here, let us cheer for you, chanting, "Here's to wives and mothers!" Yay! The men in robes were sullen. They knew they'd been defeated. They yelled a few more times and then finally retreated. And when they'd gone, a kind policeman turned to all of the clowns and offered them an escort through the center of the town. The day was bright and sunny, as most May days tend to be, in the hills of Appalachia down in Knoxville, Tennessee. People joined the new parade. The crowd stretched out for miles. The clowns passed out more flowers. Got a few more here, if you would, and made everybody smile. And what would be the lesson of that shiny southern day? Can we understand the message? Can we understand the message that those clowns sought to convey? Seems that when you're fighting hatred, hatred's not the thing to use. So here's to those who march on in their big, red, floppy shoes. Beloveds, don your floppy shoes, bring the joy, and march on. Let's march together. In that spirit, I invite you to join in singing This Little Light of Mine. If you'd like to rise in body and spirit, raise your voices as we sing together. It's 118 in the hymnals, and the words are up on the screen. And as we extinguish our chalice and prayer candles, if you'd give me a hand with that, we say together our call to ministry. We go forth into the world in peace, to act with works of love, to affirm each person's dignity, and to cherish the living earth. Go in peace, go in joy. Let's go play. Amen.